Hey you! Yes you, fellow Helldiver! Have you fought for managed democracy today? Have you basked in the glory of Super Earth this week? What am I saying? Of course you have.
Calling down a sentry!
Helldivers 2 is probably one of the most well-known titles out on the market right now. A simple yet insanely fun PvE third/first-person shooter that just flings you at endless armies of legally distinct Starship Troopers bugs, socialist robots,
Beep, beep, I am scared.
and
This information has been redacted by the Ministry of Truth. This is for your safety, citizen, and the security of Super Earth. We will now return you to your video.
just you, your friends, and enough ordnance to casually level a small continent to show that managed democracy is the true path. It is just so much fun. Unfortunately, it was not always this way. In fact, there was a period of time when Helldivers 2 was looked at as one of the biggest letdowns of gaming history. A titan that stood above all, only to crash down to Earth, both to outside influences and its own creators. This also makes it just a fascinating game to talk about. So join me, dear viewer, as we take a look at the rise, fall, and rise again of Helldivers 2. First, some personal context. I never actually played the first Helldivers. I saw some videos on it and looked at its Steam page, and while it did have good reviews, I do not really like top-down shooters, so I decided to ignore it. Heck, I never even saw a trailer or even knew about a sequel coming out, so I was completely in the dark about this game's existence pre-launch. But when it did launch, oh boy, did it make a hell pod of an impact. This game steamrolled the competition like no other, quickly rising in player count so fast that its own servers kept having to be upgraded so people could actually play the game. The average amount of people fighting for managed democracy sat around about a whopping 300,000, with at one point having almost 500,000 people on at once. Helldivers 2 almost immediately hit the top of the Steam charts, beating even top games like CSGO and Dota 2. But why was this game so ridiculously popular? What was its amazing, hard-to-understand secret? It's really fun. Allow me to specify. On the surface, the game is actually pretty simple. Pick your enemy, pick your difficulty and mission, pick your loadout, pick your nose, and then faceplant yourself onto the planet and kill everything that moves, which can include your friends. Once the mission is done, then you just repeat the process until you decide you've done enough. This basic gameplay is backed up by really one simple thing. Presentation! Entering the firefight with an automaton army, heroically fighting off a swarm of Tyranids, and weeping tears of joy and freedom after dropping your standard issue pocket nuke Pokeball at an enemy encampment. It all just makes you feel like such a badass. And then, when you turn up the difficulty and bring some meat shield, friends with you, you are presented with some of the most jaw-dropping and hectic battles you will ever face in any PvE game. It truly makes it feel like a war, especially when you're fighting the bots, and the game reinforces this feeling with all of the little details happening around you, such as the distant starships in low orbit casually erasing a nearby country. What also helps out this fact is something that you have probably already noticed in the gameplay footage. This game is gorgeous. The lighting engine on display here makes the battlefield shine in a cascade of colors and atmospherics that bring some of the most awe-inspiring visuals you will ever see. This ranges from the blue chill of Arctic planets, the harsh reds and oranges of volcanic and desert worlds, and beyond. The environment design is fantastic, which is a neat surprise since all the maps you fight on are randomly generated. Even though there are a few spots where the problems do show up, like crates spawning in walls, the random maps you get are still awesome to behold, making the planets feel more alive in a way where the addition of planetary environmental conditions to change the flow of combat. These could range from mundane things like rainstorms and fog, to Slightly more annoying things like meteor storms, earthquake tremors, and fire tornadoes. God, I hate these things! The final thing that united players, though, was the war itself, a constantly evolving narrative whose outcome and continuation was determined on how players collectively did. Every week, a major order would come down from Super Earth High Command, aka the developers, and no matter if we won or lost, the story would continue. This brought people together like nothing else before, with folks forming whole narratives and symbols out of nothing. And no symbol was more important than a twilight-lit jungle world, simply known as Malevelon Creek. This planet was within the territory of the socialist automatons, and for some reason players just fell in love with this world and turned it into an icon. These players, including me, were dubbed Creek Crawlers and refused to let the Metal Menace have this planet. Even when we got the news that the Creek had fallen, that only fueled our rage, leading to a massive counterattack in order to take the Creek back. And through our sheer bravery, tenacity, and enough munitions to level a small solar system, we finally won. All of this sounds great. And it was! Helldivers 2 dropped in as a solid 10 out of 10 experience, a game that was just too much fun to put down, and we felt like nothing could go wrong. But troubling signs began to appear on the horizon. Weapons started getting nerfs just due to their popularity, as well as the enemies starting to receive buffs to make them even harder, and to make solo mission runners have a worse time. Little did we know, though, that our pillar of fun and freedom was about to be hit hard. Some backstory for context and build-up. Back when the game first launched, players on Steam were presented with this screen asking them to make a PSN account to play the game, but allowed you to skip it if you would like. Now, Steam players on the whole are not a big fan of creating another account in order to play the game that they purchased on their Steam account. So the vast majority of people, including yours truly, skipped this option completely. And over time, we forgot this option was ever a thing. And surely it would not come up again to cause a massive problem, right? Right? And then, on May 2nd, 2024, Sony announces that players will have to link their Steam account with the PlayStation Network account if they wanted to continue to play the game, and they have until May 30th to do it. If they did not, they would lose access to the game entirely, no matter how much they paid for it. And the response was exactly what you expected.
Don't do this.
Well, here's a really good example of ruining a good thing.
If you have a Steam account, you don't want to create yet another account to manage.
No! Sweet liberty! No! Look familiar?
The reason why this made people so mad was not just because it was basically saying, use our network or go fornicate yourself with a cactus. It was also because PSN is notorious for being incredibly insecure. This is mainly from hacking incidents that happened in 2011 and 2013. 2011 being especially bad since it hit multiple Sony online services within the span of a few months. And the 2013 hack caused them to be fined $400,000 worth of money in the UK, since it was revealed that it could have been prevented by simple software updates and precautions that were simply ignored. Outside of these, PlayStation Network has regularly received problems causing people to be unable to play their games or access any of the services they want. And this makes it even more untrustworthy for people that aren't already attached to PlayStation Network, such as Steam players on PC. Another massive issue that is still plaguing Helldivers 2 to this day, as far as I'm aware, is the fact that over 170 countries were unable to play the game because of this choice. This is because Sony refuses to allow PSN to be accessible in them. These are not even small nations either. These include nations like Cuba, Albania, and basically the entire African continent. And it unfortunately looks like this is something that will never change, denying countless people from fighting for the glory of Super Earth. The response from the player base was incredibly fast, flooding the Helldivers 2 Steam page with so many negative reviews so fast that it changed the game's rating from overwhelmingly positive to mostly negative seemingly overnight. This is not even including the reactions and posts on sites such as Twitter and Reddit, which everyone knows are bastions of rational thinking and respectful conversations. All of this backlash could not be ignored, and in the end, just 4 days after the first announcement, an update was posted from Arrowhead Studios saying that the decision to require a PSN account had been reversed. This allowed the angry Helldivers to breathe a sigh of relief and take joy in the fact that they had won. Unfortunately, however, the dark clouds that formed over Helldivers 2's future had not gone away, and in fact would bring with them an issue that would plague the game for months to come. This is the biggest issue that players had with this game for the longest time. Why is everything getting nerfed? Do you like this gun? Nerfed. How about this gun? Nerfed. What about this stratagem? Screw you, it sucks now. This issue was the biggest thorn in the side of players for months, and it just kept getting worse the longer it persisted, with more and more items being sledgehammered into utter uselessness. The reason this was causing so much outrage was because of really two main reasons. The first was the fact that Helldivers 2 is a PvE game only. The whole premise of the game, as well as the reason so many people were having fun in it, was the fact that it was a pure power fantasy, allowing you to strut in like the ultimate Giga Chad into a swarm of bots and bugs, then laugh as you chuck bombing run Pokeballs into the middle of them, and suddenly they are no longer standing in the way of managed democracy. The Eagle One pilot is my waifu. This made people confused and infuriated when all of a sudden all of their weapons and gear were being balanced like this is a PvP title. Weapons would suddenly do less damage or have less ammo, and stratagems that people enjoyed would simply be less effective and just almost completely useless to any situation. The second and arguably more damning reason that this pissed so many people off is the fact that the nerfs were being handed out to items just for their sheer popularity. This first really started to happen with the nerfs to the Breaker automatic shotgun and the gun I want to marry, aka the railgun. Both were at the top of their list when it came to player use because of how good and fun they were. But then Arrowhead called in the fun police to rip them right out of the players' hands. This was unsurprisingly not received well by everyone, and the nerfs just kept getting worse and worse, even to the point of damaging one of the biggest updates the game would receive. Behold! The Escalation of Freedom, the next major step forward for Helldivers 2. It comes with a new difficulty, Super Helldive, new objectives, bigger outposts, new enemy types for the bots and bugs, and a new planet type, as well as a new environmental hazard. Wow! Oh, also, we still nerfed some of your guns by reducing magazine count and making shooting them even harder, which in turn makes fighting the enemies on the harder missions almost feel one-sided in their difficulty. Where did everybody go? Yeah, this was supposed to be the big revival of Helldivers 2. The game had already lost a massive amount of the original player base due to Arrowhead's previous decisions, and the Escalation of Freedom update was supposed to be the big draw for people to come back. And the response was mid at best. And this could all really be pointed at the balancing and the way the new content was implemented. When it came to the new enemies and bases, you could only really encounter them on the highest tier difficulties, meaning that a good chunk of players would never fight these additional combatants. The new planet and weather effect were cool, but it was basically window dressing only, and really didn't do a whole lot for people, especially if that planet type wasn't available to fight on because we couldn't reach it or we already conquered it. And finally, the new objectives were really nothing special either. Either carry a bug with you till you extract, or just bomb a bot facility that looks a little different. Not really groundbreaking. For a major update, this felt kind of lackluster. And the response was rather clear, with several news articles and reviews popping up showing the disappointment that people had. To make this disappointment even worse, right after the Escalation update dropped, Arrowhead released the Freedom's Flame War Bond. a new premium battle pass whose whole gimmick was fire weapons and fire-resisting armor. This sounds super cool. Super Earth cool, you could say. Okay, yeah, that one sucked. So how did they mess this up? By having an update that nerfed fire weapons, especially the flamethrower specifically, into the ground. Why? Why did they keep doing this? They had one of the best games of 2024, a true Game of the Year contender, and balanced it so hard that its credibility and enjoyment fell right off of a cliff. At this rate, it felt like the game was beaten so hard that it was on its last legs. The reviews at this point had it labeled as mixed at best. Something had to be done. Something big. And by God, they did. Introducing Patch 1.001.100, aka the BUFFdivers patch. This was a gigantic patch that decided, you know what, let's make everything good. We have massive buffs to weapons, nerfs to enemies, buffs to armor, and oh my god, it keeps going. Oh dear lord, it's so big. This is the best response that Arrowhead could have given. Instead of giving just a corporate-style copy-paste, apology and we are listening post that most gaming companies vomit up, they decided to say, yep, we messed up, let us make this game fun again. And that's exactly what the patch brought back. Fun. No more did players have to worry about bottlenecking their loadout because only a specific stratagem or weapon was viable, or be forced to only have a single playstyle because the rest just sucked. Now pretty much everything has a use. The assault rifles feel great, shotguns are punchy, the laser beam does a boing properly, and I can happily fillet the railgun once again. This buff also helped out previously disappointing or seemingly useless stratagems by making them just kick so much ass. The best example I can think of is the 500 kilogram bomb. This summonable Michael Bay bomb for the longest time had the small issue of it straight up lying to you. While the massive explosion looked really pretty, the actual damage radius felt like it was only in a 2-foot radius. Now, yeah, it feels like it should.
Reloading!
But guess what? It turns out that the patch was only part 1. A month later, in drops patch 1.001.104, which gave us even more fun goodies, as well as some nice surprises. We got programmable ammo for the autocannon and recoilless rifle, which I am sorry, my dear railgun, but I have spending a lot of time with. Please forgive me. Buffs to armor to make it more impactful which type you pick. Even more weapon buffs. And finally, more nerfs to the enemies in order to make them more fun to fight. This game is supposed to feel like a power fantasy, and now it really does feel like that again. Everything from solo diving missions to charging headfirst into the fires of the high-octane mess that is Helldive difficulty feel great once again. Booting up the game now brings a smile to my face instead of a frown at more nerfs. Super Earth feels super once more, and now I gladly leap at any chance I get to spread freedom, liberty, and manage democracy across the galaxy. Helldivers 2 has had quite the roller coaster of a ride when it comes to its development and handling, to put it lightly. It honestly feels like a Shakespearean tale of a game, starting at the top with a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, then plummeting into the depths of disappointment and rejection from the community, and finally rising up from its mistakes back to the heights of where it belongs. It truly is a great example of how much power the players really have, and when the companies listen to what we actually want, it makes the game all the better. With where it is now, Helldivers 2 is an easy 9.5 out of 10 game, with so much joy and replay value back in it now. Heck, the war itself got a cool update in how we affect it. As of writing right now, we are constructing a democracy space station. Yes, that's what it's called. God, I love this game. That when finished houses a massive weapons platform, as well as a voting system that will allow us to choose which planet to send it to. In short, we are building a Death Star that runs on ballots. Hell yeah! The community seems to agree overall as well, with the Steam rating once again returning to very positive, with an 87% rating as of writing this. The literal only thing holding this game back for me is the fact that I do want another faction to fight now. The bots and bugs are still loads of fun, but I think it's time for a new flavor of target practice to arrive. With all this being said, I think the easiest way to sum up this video in the end is to say, thank you, Arrowhead. You may have had me worried for a bit with how you were handling this game, but in the end, you came out with a winner once again. You guys pulled it off. Thank you for listening, and y'all are awesome for making democracy feel good once again. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please feel free to leave a like, a comment, and a subscribe. And to those who are currently subscribed or newly subscribed, hello and thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the content as well. More is coming since I am now off of vacation, and I don't know, I have some interesting ideas in the pipeline that I look forward to sharing with y'all. Until then though, y'all stay safe, y'all have a good one, and y'all just stay awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.